ശാസ്ത്രവിളയിച്ചൊന്നും അതിരതില്ലായിരുന്നല്ലോ.
Are as habitual as they've become, but they have, these were all things that we had to learn how to do. We had to make some mistakes as we were going through all of this, but now we've got, we early on identified the need for effective communication, to consult public health officials, and to make sure that our personnel knew what to expect when they were arriving on campus when we did return to work. I already mentioned the fact that we were lucky and had some of the training pieces in place to help people teach in a new format. And there was a lot of challenge for many of our faculty who have been teaching, for in some cases multi-decade careers in one style. And so suddenly learning how to do what we're doing tonight is very foreign to a lot of our more senior faculty. Communications, as we all know, that can always be better. I would say that the one area where it would be very easy to give us flawed marks would be in routine and consistent communications. Even though I can attest that our senior management team, this was always top of the agenda, but getting the communication straight, making sure that all of the people who were transmitting communications had all of the relevant information was a daily challenge. And I think we've gotten better at it over time. But I know my colleagues on the call in the meeting here would also acknowledge that there's always more that we could do to help affirm our common mission at the university in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. But even through all of this, and again, I think thinking about the theme of the conference as being post-COVID, we had an eye toward the future. And even during some of these challenges, we continued to hire really outstanding faculty. We figured out how to interview and confirm employees, new hires virtually, even senior leadership, all done virtually without traditional tools like campus visits and other really important activities for making someone feel that this is the right work home for their future career. But we continued all of that, and we continue our normal processes for performance evaluation of our faculty and our staff. Obviously, our primary stakeholder are our students. The amount of effort, discovery, challenge around figuring out how to accommodate in our case over almost 1,500 students who have a diverse profile with regard to where their homes are, We have a sizable international student population, many of whom in the early stages of the pandemic went home and then had trouble getting back into the country to resume study in the fall. We have students with diverse economic circumstances. We have a substantial digital divide on our campus. So students who were not able to afford the technologies they needed. So when we decided to move to remote instruction, we had students who were not able to afford the laptops, even the cell phones, or did not have Wi-Fi access at their homes. And so we had solutions that evolved, like a student emergency fund, to help raise money from our larger community to buy laptops, to buy Wi-Fi hotspots, and numerous other technologies and other facilities for services for our students. So those are just a number of things. We have intercollegiate athletics that is part of a national association. And those regulations that the student athletes abide by complicate the work of housing students. It complicates our ability to even manage the disease on campus because of the nature of competitions and the fact that those alone can be opportunities to spread contagion on the campus. So those again introduced challenges and that we're continuing to work through at the university. I think the biggest thing for all of us to consider are the challenges that this pandemic as a crisis has imposed on us financially. So it was no surprise to us, but it did take we had to prepare for this, that once we removed students from campus, we lost a very, very major source of institutional revenue because you cannot charge students to live on campus if they're away from campus. It's not justified. We can't justify that. Fortunately, the United States did provide some relief to higher education institutions in the form of two acts of legislation. One was a direct student loan program through what's called the CARES Act. There also was a forgivable loan program to smaller businesses, and our university was just below the threshold for qualifying for that, for a forgivable loan to make it possible to sustain our payroll throughout the year. We did ultimately fare a little better than expected because our freshman class, our first year students that came in the fall, that number was not as high as we feared. The loss was not as high as we feared. So that turned out to be a benefit for us. In terms of raising funds, obviously, this is a huge challenge in this environment. It is really difficult to make new relationships, so we're doing it today, but to build that friendship, to sustain the acts of development, an active development campaign for your organization, for your university. So I imagine that many of you will be talking about fundraising, especially for nonprofit businesses, and how do you continue to achieve that? For us, the student circumstances, telling that story that we have students in need has been an effective message to our donors to gain some support for their sustained learning at the university. Recruiting students is also a challenge. We now have virtual open houses. Our faculty are learning how to work in that environment. But the main thing that we're seeing here is a radical shift in the cycle for when students apply to college. And it's introduced a substantial level of uncertainty for the next academic year. And I know that my colleagues in the United States are experiencing similar uncertainties at all of their institutions as the secondary institutions and the process for the expectations for applying to college are not happening in the normal way that they do in every previous year. So we're now just starting to see an uptick in applications, but they're down substantially from previous years, and that's an anomaly that we're going to have to be prepared to confront. And we don't know yet what the longer term future is, whether this is also going to be reflective of a consumer type decision about the value of higher education. Um, Even through all of the work that we've done this year, our accreditation work, we have to comply with federal regulations, quality control for our academic programs. We've had virtual site visits by our accrediting bodies. We'll see how we fared in some of those as our regional and some of our special accreditation took place this year. But the longer story is that assessment and continuous improvement never rest. We have to produce reports of our effectiveness in managing even in a situation where emotions are frayed, and the idea of continuous work in the old habitual ways is very much strained. Um, as I'm getting to the end of these comments here, I think, for a conference like this, there is going to be a lot of questions, and I think there should be dialogue about what leadership means during a crisis. I think we learn a lot about ourselves. We learn a lot about our colleagues in a crisis like this. Our university, we had a new president begin his tenure just prior to the pandemic. And I think that, for good or for ill, he's had to manage through this just as much as all of us have. And I think one of the things I've personally been really grateful for in President Shannon's leadership at CBU is that he's kept a kind of aggressive posture relative to the future. So he's looking beyond the pandemic, and has been, since the start of this. And that's meant, I've already described some of the normal and routine processes that, had we been more focused on simply responding to the challenges, we might not have focused also on the need to prepare the institution for what happens next. So we continue to have strategic discussions, planning planning and cultivating a structure that's going to propel us to be successful and sustainable when more normal times, let's hope they happen, resume in the hopefully near future. So in giving this, again, retrospective through a kind of managerial lens, I said earlier that I'd like to kind of close with how I think about this through my own kind of professional and personal lens as an ethicist. And I think it's been useful for me to think about our crisis in terms of virtues. And these are character traits, excellences. I heard the philosopher mentioned earlier, and that there's a virtue ethicist in his own right as well. So I, in order to cope personally, to help me get through each day with the myriad challenges and anxieties that I was confronted with, my own and others, I realized that early on, I needed to cultivate a virtue of mercy. And by this, I mean that it would be very, very easy to be disappointed, frustrated, angered by the failures of our colleagues, of our fellow people, to wear masks in public, to protect themselves and others from the further spread of disease, to mismanage a crisis. There are so many ways we could be upset. But for me, I needed to recognize that they don't need my anger. I don't need my anger. I need to be optimistic and hopeful and know that everyone is really trying to do their best, and hopefully try to honestly believe that. So I think I tell myself this daily whenever I'm inclined to be really bothered and annoyed or focused on something that's disappointing, that we're going to get through this, and let's not dwell on these negatives. Let's continue to model excellence ourselves. Also in the mix for me is courage, because each day of this we are living in a very dangerous time. The actions that we're taking expose ourselves, especially when we're working outside of our homes, when we're working in an environment with other people, we're exposing ourselves to hazard. And so that's just the beginning of it. And then in the leadership position in an organization where we know, for example, that our institution to survive does require students to be on this campus. We work best as educators in a personal environment. Yes, we want to continue to excel in the online area, but it's very important that we continue to be together. That's been our core mission. And that's been where we've been successful for the 150 years that our university has been open. We need to be aware of the fact that we're going to be successful in a dangerous set of circumstances. That requires courage. And so it would be easy to kind of cave to our fears, but I think that all of us can identify that the work that we have to do now and the work that we do every day, just showing up to work, even leaving the house, is an act of courage. Turning the lens then to managerial virtues or administrative virtues or professional virtues, if we want to call them that, 5 stood out to me. One is obviously accountability. Ultimately, I am the president, the leadership team, and each of us in our own occupations on the campus is accountable for transmitting, one, the mission of the university, the mission of the organization to our stakeholders, to our students, and to each other. And so at any moment, we are making decisions that do affect each other. Not all of those decisions are going to be received in the way that we hope that they would be. There's going to be disagreement about those, but ultimately we have to accept the responsibility for executing these decisions, to taking the brave steps forward so that we do continue to prepare ourselves for that post-COVID future. Also, it's really important, and it's part of being accountable in the way I think about it, to be self-aware about our experiences. You need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to your colleagues. You need to recognize that there is a reality that you have to be good at discerning. And it's not always easy. It can be very tempting to believe that the comfort of your office is descriptive of the world around you. It's really important to understand how people are experiencing, especially in your organization, are experiencing your messages, your communication, your vision for moving forward. And so maintaining a self-awareness, not in a way that's self-defeating. We're not going to be successful in everything that we're going to do here. Part of the virtue of mercy is to be willing to forgive yourself for your own failures in trying to be successful. But I think that being aware of the reality in which you're working and continuing to recognize that you're never going to have it all just right is really critical to continuing to manage through a crisis like this and beyond it. By prudence, this is practical wisdom in a philosophical voice, but here really kind of remembering what the core mission is. At CBU, we teach undergraduate students and graduate students to be effective when they leave our doors and go out and serve back in their communities. So let's make sure that whatever we're doing, we're not going to become a COVID clinic. That's, even though we're getting better at stuff like that, that's not our job. Our job is to teach. And so keep focusing on what we do best, why we exist, and making sure that all of our operations and all of our messaging and all of our strategic work continues to focus around our core identity as a university. I mentioned communication earlier, so I won't belabor it now. But again, it's really essential not only to get to give information, but to get it, to listen to your colleagues, and to make sure that when I hear from a public health official what they really expect of faculty for preserving information that would be useful to stop the spread of infection, that I make sure that the faculty are getting that, or communicating the meaning of different kinds of course formats for the university. Again, you can never do this enough, in my opinion. Finally, and I mentioned this in the disposition of our president, I think it's a disposition of many on our leadership team. but being able to continue to think forward. This is going to end. It's going to be different. And I know that you're all during this conference going to be thinking about the implications of your work for the future and the different solutions that you have to the various problems that COVID has produced. But again, keeping an eye on that, making sure that we're continuing to build relationships and building structure and strategy that's going to be needed as we sustain these marvelous institutions with which we work. So that's a quick, maybe not as quick as you'd like, but a quick take on my experience, a kind of I really appreciate the opportunity to give to that this occasion has provided for me to reflect back a bit on what the past year has been like. As you can see, there are a diverse set of challenges and profiles to the work I do that occupy my thinking and my time, as well as my colleagues. But I really wish you all a fabulous conference. Thank you for the honor of giving this address. And good luck and be safe and be well. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your experience with us. She is well known for her calmness and effortless grace. She uplifts us like a leader. She is a true inspiration to all of us. Now, I invite Dr. Sister Rose Baston, coordinator of the self-financing section, to release the proceedings of the conference. Over to you, Sister. Thank you, Sister. Appreciation and encouragement is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent to others belong to us as well. Now, let me invite our dear Vice Principal, Sister Plessy, for the felicitation. Over to you, Sister.
Respected Chief Guest Dr. Paul Hart, our Principal Dr. Sister Anis Kevi, Vice Principal Dr. Sister Eliza, Self-Financing Course Coordinator Dr. Sister Rose Bastin, Thomas Sir, Head of the Department of Commerce and Management Studies, dignitaries and delegates from India and abroad, faculty members of St. Joseph's, and all other participants present here in this online platform. A splendid day ahead to one and all. Hope all are keeping well in these limits of COVID epidemic stage. It is my pleasant privilege to extend a felicitation to this international conference conducted by the Department of Commerce and Management Studies. I have noted that the key areas covered by the resource person of this conference for the discussions are post-COVID global scenario, threats and opportunities in the field of education, trade, commerce and industry, and healthcare, which are very relevant in this pandemic situation. This conference itself is an outcome from our part to overcome the challenges raised by this global pandemic. This international conference, hosted in collaboration with Christian Brothers University, USA, has added one more golden feather to St. Joseph's College. I extend my wholehearted support and encouragement and take this opportunity to congratulate Thomas Sir and team for initiating such an apt virtual conference. I hope this international conference will help the entire faculty to adapt according to the need of the hour and march ahead in the right direction. I wish all the success to the coordinators. May Almighty God bless you all. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister. Now I invite Vice Principal Dr. Sister Eliza to share her words of wisdom and appreciation. Over to you, Sister.
Respected Chief Guest of the Day, invited dignitaries and participants, a warm good morning to one and all. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. The COVID-19 crisis has affected societies and economies around the globe and will permanently reshape our world as it continues to unfold. Yet, adversity can also be a great opportunity. War not only destroys but also creates opportunities for those who are resilient and keen to rebuild. Today, our war against coronavirus has brought to us similar challenges and opportunities. Corona, the great leveler, levels all the people in same scale without any discrimination between rich and poor. It is the time to analyze and innovate the ways to cope up with the post era of COVID 19. Today, it is my privilege to felicitate on the occasion of the inauguration of this international virtual conference. I am happy that, according to the need of our, the Department of Commerce and Management Studies, under the able leadership of Professor K.I. Thomas, has taken the initiative to organize an international virtual conference on post-COVID global scenario in collaboration with Graduate Business Christian Brothers University, USA. With great pleasure, I congratulate all the organizers and wish you all the best. Dear participants, wish you all fruitful sessions throughout these 3 days. Once again, wish you all the very best for the success for the program. Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you, sister. It is time to end our official inaugural ceremony. For proposing the vote of thanks for the day, let me invite Kirti Premadas. Over to you, Kirti.
The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation for goodness. With that being said, on behalf of Department of Commerce and Management Studies, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to the seminar on post-COVID global scenario, threats and opportunities. At the outset, I thank our chief guest and resource person, Dr. Paul Hort. We are enlightened with your knowledge and presence. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Babu George for providing support to make the seminar a success. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Sister Asha Therese, for her support and guidance for organizing such an event. I extend my thanks to our vice principals, Sister Blessy and Dr. Sister Eliza, for their support as well. Wholeheartedly, I must thank the coordinator of self-financing section, Dr. Sister Rose Bastian, for her support. Further, we are grateful to the retired faculty for gracing us with their presence. And I would like to acknowledge my gratitude to our pioneer, Mr. Thomas K.I., Head of the Department of Commerce and Management Studies, for his encouragement. A special thanks to the organizing committee, technical members, coordinators, and volunteers for their tremendous contribution to make this event a success. I would also like to thank the teaching and non-teaching staff for their unflinching support and coordination. Last but not least, a heartfelt thanks to the students for their active participation. With these warm words, we come to an end of the inaugural function. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you, Kirti. With this, we conclude the official inauguration. Now, it is time to start with the technical session. Let us begin our session with the keynote address. Today, we have a distinct personality with us, Dr. Bivali B. Vitali, a professor and director of Institute for Leadership Development at Christian Brothers University, USA. Today, she will be talking to us about what can positive psychology teach business in post-COVID world. Now, without any further delay, let me invite Professor Dr. Bivali for the keynote address. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. I am going to share my screen. And as I pull up the presentation, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It has been quite an honor to get to know your colleague and now mine, Dr. Babu George. And we are so excited to have him at Christian Brothers University, and we are excited to co-host this conference. Okay, so my talk is about what positive psychology can teach the corporate world in a post-COVID world. All right, so sure many of you already know about positive psychology. So I'd like for you to use the chat function to add your answer to what is it you already know about positive psychology. And as you're writing those in the chat, I need to tell you a little disclaimer. My talk is on positive psychology, but I am not a psychologist. I have my PhD in management. But as I started working as a consultant and trainer in corporate America, I began to realize that many of the most progressive organizations in our country are using the tenets of positive psychology with their workforce. And so it became evident to me that I needed to learn more about the field so that I could fit in when I go and consult and provide workshops to companies. So I'm not a psychologist, but I have read a lot of this literature and hope that I understand it well enough to present this presentation. Okay, so what was social connection at work like before COVID? So this is our 19th US Surgeon General. So a Surgeon General in my country is considered the top doctor. He is appointed by our president, and he oversees many of the public health initiatives that may come from our federal government. So he is considered the people's doctor in our country. And both this Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, and Harvard Business Review said that the loneliness at work is an epidemic. So not a pandemic, but at least in our country, loneliness at work had become an epidemic in 2017. So this was before COVID, and people at work were saying that they were lonely. So what does that mean? Here are some quotes that started appearing in different periodicals in our country about loneliness. So The Guardian called the 2000s the age of loneliness. 1 in 4 Americans report having no one to whom they can discuss important matters. And you can see some of these other quotes that loneliness had become quite an issue in corporate America. And I believe it's probably an issue around the globe, especially now with COVID, when we are isolated, more isolated than we have been in the past. So what are the risk factors of becoming lonely? Well, our ability to be mobile with our work world can actually cause us to be lonelier than normal, because we can go to the coffee shop and do our work. We can go to the park and do our work. And so we're not in groups of employees anymore. We are mobile. Technology is a factor in that, as well as the fact that we have 24/7 access to work. So it is nighttime here in Memphis, Tennessee. It's actually past my bedtime, but I'm here at a conference because that's the way that the world works now. And what it does is makes us much more focused on work and much more productive, but at the same time, it is causing us to be lonely. Dr. Murthy, the Surgeon General of the United States, claims that when he was in private practice, so when he was a doctor in private practice, that loneliness was the condition his patients complained about the most. So they wouldn't come in and say, hey, Dr. Murthy, I feel lonely. But as he began to talk to them about their symptoms, he realized that they were isolated, socially isolated, and isolated at work. And that was causing their stress or their high blood pressure or all of these other health issues that we normally wouldn't associate with loneliness. So the number of people reporting loneliness in my country, in the United States, has doubled and is now at 53%. That's as of 2018. I am very anxious and excited to hear what that number will be as we begin to measure it during the age of COVID. Because you just have to believe when people are quarantining and isolating themselves from people at work and from their loved ones, that the amount of loneliness is increasing. And of course, that's due to our COVID-19 situation. Okay, so why does it matter? Why does it matter if people are lonely? Well, here are the health reasons why we need to pay attention to our level of social interaction. People who say that they're lonely have shorter life expectancies. They have more cardiovascular issues. They suffer more from dementia, anxiety, depression, and probably the most important for the workforce is that it affects your prefrontal cortex, which means that your ability to think rationally is diminished if you feel lonely. And we know how dangerous it is to smoke cigarettes. Loneliness has the same health issues, causes the same health issues as an obese person who smokes 15 cigarettes per day. So loneliness is something we don't really talk about as a health issue, but it is very, very important to have to our health that we are socially connected to other people. So what happens in the workplace if your employees begin to feel lonely? Well, the biggest issue that research has found is that it decreases engagement. So it creates lower productivity, lower innovation and creativity, and lower employee retention. So it is something that really has an impact on the bottom line in organizations. If you're familiar with the Gallup organization, they poll organizations around the globe, and they have come up with 12 questions that measure engagement. And question number 10 of those 12 is, I have a best friend at work. And the number of people who can say that is diminishing and has been diminishing over time as people recognize that they are lonely. Declining scale. As you move up the organization, fewer and fewer people can say that they have a best friend at work. So as you go up the corporate ladder, you tend to have fewer friends. And that means that you're answering this question number 10, I have a best friend at work. You're saying, no, I don't. And that creates that loneliness. So what's the answer to all this loneliness? Well, we can take a lot of ideas from the field of positive psychology. So let's turn that negative loneliness into some positivity and figure out what we can do about this phenomenon. So I'm sure you're all familiar with longitudinal studies. These are the richest studies for studying human behavior. And the longest study on happiness and how it impacts people over time is a group of 724 men that have been studied since 1938. Some of these people are still alive, and the study is now studying the study is continuing even as the original subjects begin to die. They're now studying their children. So what the study did was it started with sophomores at Harvard University. And they studied these sophomores all of these years, now 75 years, as well as teenagers or people the same age from the Boston underserved community. And you would think that the Harvard sophomores, being privileged and having all these opportunities to make more wealth, to be more successful in their careers, that they would be happier over their lifetime. But that's actually not what the study found. The study actually found that teenagers from the Boston underserved community had just as great of a chance to experience happiness over their lifetime as did the privileged Harvard sophomores. So here are the lessons learned. If you have good relationships in your 50s, that's going to keep you happier and healthier way into your 80s. So I'm in my mid-50s, and so loneliness is something I can't afford. I have to make social connections in order to have any chance of being happy and healthy in my 80s. And it's the quality, not the quantity of relationships that matter. So having one strong, intimate relationship with someone, and by intimacy, I mean emotional connection with someone, is just as powerful as having 10 quality relationships. So it only takes one. But in a world of COVID and a world of loneliness at work, there are a lot of people who say they don't even have one quality relationship. And those who are happiest and healthiest in their 80s are able to take work relationships that are important during our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s and transfer those or change them into personal relationships when they retire. So you don't have to seek out these relationships outside of work. You can have quality relationships at work, and that will make you more productive at work. It will make you more engaged at work, happier outside of work, happier in work, and in the long run, healthier. So let's look at some research that looks at social connections at work. And this research found one research by Gu in 2017 said relationships in the workplace characterized by cooperation, trust, and fairness activate the reward center of the brain. So the brain believes that it's getting a reward if it is engaged in these types of cooperative, high trust relationships. So it's the same trigger in our brains that thinks, oh, I'm getting ice cream, or oh, I got a raise. Having these healthy relationships at work trigger that same part of our brain. And according to a study in 2008, when employees experience positive relationships, the body is able to build and maintain and repair itself for issues that happen in the workplace and non-workplace. So we call this resiliency. So people who have strong positive relationships are in turn becoming more resilient to things that may happen to them at work or in their resting times. So what can the corporate world do to ensure that their employees continue to stay engaged, especially in the world of COVID. So I wanted to start answering that question by asking, what is the corporate world already doing during COVID to ensure that there are healthy, happy relationships at work? I have a student who works for a very large nonprofit here in the Mid-South. And every day at 2 o'clock, she stops her work, she puts it down, and she writes letters of gratitude to her staff. So this is a senior director at a very large nonprofit organization who understands that gratitude is one of the ways that you can improve your levels of happiness. It's a way that you can ensure more social connectedness. And so it helps with that loneliness. Giving, either buying somebody a cup of coffee or giving to your favorite nonprofit can help you not be as lonely. More communication and accessibility of management. So if you are in management, think about maybe having office hours. It's one of the things that we're being encouraged to do at CBU is having virtual office hours so that we're there for our students as they begin to feel lonely. Conduct regular check-ins, have games and interactive fun. So here's some of the ways that teams across the globe in corporate settings are staying engaged. They're doing quarantine bingo. They're having TikTok competitions. We actually even did this on our campus. Costume Fridays. So they dress up on Fridays for their Zoom calls. Guess the baby. So employees send in pictures of themselves when they were a baby, and they show those during the Zoom call, and employees have to guess who that baby is. Doing escape rooms. There are ways to do virtual escape rooms. Doing virtual scavenger hunts. I actually do this in my classes. Having happy hours. And one of the things that Amazon is doing is they are sending kits to people's homes that may have their favorite drink mixes in them. And so everybody at their Friday afternoon Zoom call will have the drink that they've received from Amazon, and they'll take part in a little happy hour. And then they celebrate victories. So you still continue, even during COVID, during your Zoom calls, to talk about what the team is doing that is victorious, things that employees are doing that are making a difference for the organization. So what can corporate America or the corporate world do after COVID to ensure that we don't go back to those levels of loneliness? So we had to be patient as managers when we entered COVID. We had to be patient with people learning technology. We had to be patient with people's stress over the pandemic. So when we are back face-to-face, though, we need to instill some of those same concepts. Be patient as employees adjust back. I have not been in a face-to-face classroom now since last March, so almost a year. It's going to be different. I'm sure it's going to be stressful as I start back, whenever we do start back face-to-face. So being patient, as Dr. Hott said, having some mercy. Continue what worked during quarantine. So if the Zoom meetings worked during quarantine, continue to have some of those. If the happy hours worked during quarantine, continue to have some of those. Continue team building. Team building is one of the ways that people can feel as though they're included. It's one of the ways that loneliness can be eradicated in the corporate world. If your workers are still working remotely after COVID, there's going to be a lot of brick and mortar organizations that closed their brick and mortar. They've learned that, hey, we can get just as much work done remotely, and we can save the cost of utilities and a building and leases and all of those things. So it's very likely that some of the corporate world will continue to work remotely after the pandemic. So if that's the case in your organization, encourage the use of co-working spaces so that now when we get back and we can go places without social distancing and without wearing our masks, there are, at least in my country, places where people can go and co-work together. So they set up a printer and a coffee maker and share those things and work remotely while still together. And then I want to leave you with a strategy that has worked for some large organizations in the United States. It's called the 10-5 way. And this is an initiative where you ask your employees that when they come 10 feet from someone, that they make eye contact. And when they come closer, within 5 feet, we can't do that right now. We have to stay 6 feet apart. But when we get back and we can come 5 feet within contact with someone, you say hello. And it sounds like a little thing, just making eye contact, and then when you get closer, saying hello. The research has found that organizations that adopt this policy actually have higher customer service ratings, higher employee engagement, more productivity. It's because we are being courteous and nice to each other, and making eye contact may seem like a little thing, but it actually does make a difference. All right. So happiness is contagious by 3 degrees of separation. What does that mean? It means if I surround myself with happy friends, then that makes me happier. It makes my friends happier. It makes their friends happier, and it makes their friends' friends happier. 3 degrees of separation. Happiness is very contagious, and it beats loneliness every day. So make sure you're getting lots of social interaction, even if it is just over Zoom, even if it is 6 feet away. It will lead to a happier lifestyle, healthier lifestyle, and more engagement in the workplace. All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Education post-COVID, a topic that affects each student directly, a topic of curiosity and importance to all of us. The panel discussion today will be on this topic. Now, let me invite Dr. Babu George to guide us through the panel discussion. Now I hand over to you, sir.
Hello, everyone. It is getting late for all of you. I'm so sorry that due to the technical glitches initially, we had to wait. But the 2 speakers before me, they did an excellent job. And I really hope everyone learned from their presentations. So without spending more time on prefacing, let me go to the panel. I see a lot of familiar faces here. My co-panel members. I don't need to introduce all of you again because that would be, first of all, taking a lot of time. Second, you were all introduced. So I hope Eddie is still here.
Yes, I am.
Very good. Eric, are you here?
Yeah.
Should be. Yes.
Yes,
Hello.
I'm here.
Yeah. Every time I speak with you, it is late in the evenings for you. What's the time for you right now? 2 a.m., 3 a.m.?
Yeah, it's just about 4:20 a.m.
Oh, so you basically
Yeah.
lost half night sleep.
It's all right.
Yeah. Yes. Leila, are you here? Can the organizers highlight the panel members? I cannot see the panel members. Okay, I can see Yaprak, I can see Sergio, I can see Martha, I can see Maximiliano.
Hello, Bob.
Hello, very good. So yeah, so let's just go to the conversation. And as I told you, this is a semi-formal or casual conversation on the changes in education during COVID and post-COVID. And Dr. Hort gave a good framing of the issue, even though I did not, tell him to do this, or I didn't even suggest. He gave a good framing of the topic. So, hello, Sister Aradhana.
Hello.
So, good to see you. So let's start asking this question. How do schools and colleges deal with COVID scenarios in your countries, in your regions? Let me start asking Sergio, Bolivia, right? So, or your region. How do you guys deal with this?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Babu. Thank you for all the organizers for so great panel, so great conference. Well, here in Bolivia, what we have is really a really situation about the COVID. We are facing the second wave, and at the first, obviously, what we have to do is go to a quarantine and go turn all the classes to the online session, not to virtual level. For us, for my university, was kind of not so difficult because we used to have some programs in graduate level. For example, one program I am running, the MBA in digital business with the Universidad of Politécnica Valencia and UPB, the double degree. And we used to have that some synchrononicals online sessions. But for all of our programs and master programs, what we have to do is prepare all the professors to have the methodology of the case of study methodologies. They put together in online sessions, dividing groups, put together groups of peoples working in different sub-sales in Zoom connections. It has to be a lot of work for us to prepare all the professors, to prepare the students, but it's the new now, and we have to make aware that there is now what we have to do. And in the second way, what we have now is a multimodal platforms, and you could choose to go online and you could choose to go presential. But right now in Bolivia, we are going to face a new wave, and I think it's going to stay on online sessions, Bob.
Very good, very good. So that's the perspective, which is probably very similar to some of the Asian countries as well, based on what I read. How about, we have Eric from Ghana. So what do you think? I mean, how do you deal with the pandemic, Eric?
Yeah, for us in Ghana, we've been a little fortunate in the sense that the government put in very good measures, asking us to keep to the protocols, and that really helped a lot. So now even schools are reopened. We are in school. In my school, they are writing their examinations, and the freshers are in. So for us, it's a little bit positive, and we are happy about that because the government has been very, very helpful in supporting us to stand against this COVID issue. For us in the school, there had been a little issue because of the fact that some of the students, because of poverty and so on, they couldn't manage the situation. As school is open, they have to pay their fees, and because of the pandemic, they have a lot of financial issues. So that's the problem we have now at our institution.
Very good. Very good. So I'm just taking a brief survey, as a starting point, because that will help us understand the diversities and divergences, and if there is a common pattern within all those. So I'm just randomly calling the panelists based on how I see all of you here. So I can see Martha. Martha is in the United States, but she's originally from Puerto Rico. I know Martha for forever, right? So, Martha, what do you think? I mean, based on your experience in the United States versus your knowledge about what might be happening in, some of the U.S. territories, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, or any of those places?
Well, I'm at this moment in Southwest Minnesota. That's a small university. It's a state university that belongs to the state system. So when all started, we were in the middle of the spring break, and they gave us like 2 additional weeks to prepare. So we have a spring break of 3 weeks to get prepared. Some programs were more impacted because they were not used to hybrid teaching. Business, we have been ahead, and we have been teaching hybrid for a long time. So it wasn't as difficult to us. Comparing Puerto Rico with my university at this moment, Puerto Rico has been very strict. Even when the COVID cases were very, very low, they closed. They closed the island, and everybody went online. There was no face-to-face anything. Still, universities are not doing any face-to-face. On the contrary, we were already fall 2020. We were, well, the administration asked us to be on campus, most of us. The senior professors that were in a high risk, well, excused from being on campus, but they were trying to motivate us to be there because they realized that it was so important for students, that students were getting depressed, students were dropping courses because they were missing the interaction. So I think that here they have been more proactive than in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, they have been very strict with the measures.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martha. And we have Dr. Lena. She is in Vietnam. So that's going to be an entirely different perspective, I would assume. We don't have anyone else from that region in this panel. I mean, we have other people coming in the next one. Lena, how has your experience, and you're working for an Australian university in Vietnam, right? So RMIT University. So that comes with an added set of nuances.
Yes. Can you all hear me? Because I cannot see myself and I'm not sure. All right. Okay. So it's just me that cannot see myself. Hello, everyone. Very nice to meet all of you at different times of the day and night. So what is different about Vietnam? Number one, the government of Vietnam is very hands-on and has been like that from the very beginning of the pandemic. For example, just a few days after China started reporting cases, Vietnam had already canceled flights. Not just a few flights, but like all of the flights. So like the 1st and 2nd of February already, we had maybe 85% of flights canceled. Next is we received very direct and frequent communications from the government directly to the citizens. For example, even for me as a foreigner, I would get an SMS both in Vietnamese and in English saying, according to the, I live in Ho Chi Minh City, according to the local government of Ho Chi Minh City, please note that there is a fraudulent call and they say that they have medication for COVID-19. Please do not donate any money to them. Please report them to the local police immediately. This is the phone number for reporting and so on. When there was a beginning of a supermarket scare at some point, like people would be rushing to buy supplies. Like I know most of the world happened. For us, it was the potatoes that ran out, not so much the toilet paper. And we received SMSs to shop online. So we received SMSs from the local government or even from the Ministry of Education and Healthcare, from Ministry of Healthcare directly. Please shop online. Please avoid going to the supermarkets when there are a number of people above a certain number and so on. What Babu mentioned also, yes, I work in an Australian university, but located in Ho Chi Minh City. So I think it's an advantage because most local schools had to close for about 4 months. So as soon as the government said we will be going online, most of the local schools did online classes with the children if they were younger, or files and PDFs uploaded somewhere for the local university students to download by themselves. We went on TV, well, not me, obviously, our school went on TV for being one of the very few universities in Vietnam that kept the live face-to-face sessions with our students. And we did that for until June, until end of May, actually, when the semester ended. Even after the social distancing and other rules were no longer in place, we still continued to do that. But one feature that I would like to highlight about the way we handle things and the way things have been handled in this country is that the government is everywhere and the local officials will connect with every institution, with every business. For example, I'm part of a leadership group and they received emails 45 minutes before an event asking them to cancel this event because there was an event on Facebook with over 38 people invited at the time that had confirmed arrival. So this is the level of, of hands-on involvement that we get. Campus visits, we have officials checking that we put X crosses on the tables with the chairs where people cannot sit because it's too close to each other. And we had temperature checks and so on. And we have emails that the government had said that from Monday, this time to this time, we have to do this and that and so on. We don't mind it. It has made us very lucky. We have only 35 people died. We have only about 1,000 cases after a year, and we share a border with China. So we are very grateful for this. Thank you. I think, sorry, if I went over my
no, you did not.
Time,
I mean,
I'll let that.
You all are enriching with your own, interesting perspectives, and I mean, I'm just calling according to the order I see it. So, Eddie, I mean, you also may have cross-cultural international perspectives because you work in Qatar, but you also may have something to talk about, some other regions, Africa or somewhere. Or how do you see the situation in Qatar, or if you know about UAE or any of the countries? Are educational systems resilient? Are they keeping up with the stress of the times?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Babu. I will use the perspective of my university. We teach a modular system, and the COVID-19 came in the middle of the module period, and we had to switch immediately to online. It was a bit of a challenge at the beginning, especially the first week, where students had, out of nowhere, the university expecting them to access internet. But fortunately, Qatar is one of the blessed countries, quite a bit rich. So each of the students, the majority were able to access internet. And most lecturers also have internet in their homes. It was very easy to adjust. Like Vietnam, Qatar is a bit strict. They are strong in terms of laws. And immediately they create the Ministry of Health, Public Health, created, which collects information for every resident. And you could not go to the supermarket or anywhere without a green. It has about 3 colors: green, orange, and red. If it is red, it is confirmed COVID case. If it is orange, it is under quarantine kind of. And if it is green, you are okay. And that kind of system created an awareness, and each individual is self-aware that they are going to do something, they are required to do something that is required. And definitely there are hefty charges in case you are found on the wrong side of the law, and that has kept the number of COVID cases low, and we get updates every day. For example, by yesterday, 26th, we had 299 new cases and 143 new cases recovered. And from the start, we have had only 248 cases of death and a total of 145,000 have recovered. And the situation now is fully in control. We have hybrid teaching, we use online. Now we have 80% acceptance within the college, within the university. And life is now a bit normal, and we are moving on perfectly well.
Good. Very good. That's a positive note. Max, I mean, I'm sorry again, you know, you have to be awake,
Yes.
what, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for
Yes,
you
2 p.m.
We really appreciate your time. What are some of the opening remarks you could give? I mean, you are a sociologist par excellence. I really appreciate the extent of research you do, and I have been happy to be associated with you. What's your take on, I mean, the pandemic? I mean, for the audience, Max is from Argentina. So that's a very interesting perspective.
Yes, no problem. Happy to meet in this meeting, this joint. Well, one of the problem of pandemic is economic centric paradigm. We have discussed this in our papers and books we have writing together. The fact is that our discipline, tourism students, have evolved thinking that the tourist is the only person and the only source of information that give reliable information about things. And that's not happens. Tourism is a very complex system. It's in an ever-changing world. Globalization is bringing into our heart. We have serious and big problems, and we need big solutions. So we need to develop new methods and epistemologies about we understand tourism and the social nature of tourism. What happens with this? How we tourism researchers study tourism in a world without tourism. That's not impossible. This is the problem. We need to understand that alternative methods, for example, digital technologies or digital mobilities, or any other methodologies will be taken into room, because in other ways we are not understanding the nature of tourism. For example, in Argentina, there is the strict measures and lockdowns that ban out to going to holidays, but people is going to holidays anyway. Holidays are a sacred ritual, so it's a ritual that practices Romans, Assyrians, and other empires. We understand the historic nature of tourism to understand the connections between mobilities and tourism. In that ways, we have a lot to learn. A lot to learn, I believe.
Very interesting. So thanks, Max.
No problem, Babu.
Yeah, good to see you after a long time. Dr. Sister Aradhana, you come with a very unique set of experiences. You were an academician and administrator, you were a college principal, and now you are the Mother Superior, or no, even what you? Not Mother Superior. No, sorry. So yes, superior. I mean, yes. Yes. So you are the head of a religious, order, which has extensive investment in education. You run schools and colleges. How do institutions under your leadership perform during this pandemic, or what did you learn, or anything else you could share for us?
Babu, first of all, let me say a very big thank you for inviting me to this webinar. It has been a very joyful experience to listen to so many different people from so many parts of the world, and to get such a wide panoramic view of what is happening in the world actually. So for me,
it's our pleasure.
For me, after almost when I was about to retire as principal, I was elected as Secretary General. I was elected to the General Administration of the congregation, the Secretary General to the whole congregation. So we have a team of 7 people. Our Superior General is on top. Then we have a council, and I'm the secretary of this team. So now it was a big jump for me from Goa to Bangalore. And I was like, it has been like during this COVID times, it has been quite a difficult time, but it's been a learning experience, as we saw everyone of the participants sharing that. No? So like we felt that it was only in July that we were able to come together here in Bangalore, and even after that quarantine period and all. Okay. Then as a Superior General took over, her very first notice, it gave a prophetic call to be compassionate to our less fortunate brothers and sisters. I'll just read a small paragraph from her notice. She says, during this time of pandemic, the humanity is suffering and we may not be able to reach out much. However, the ones who collaborate with us at any level have to be cared for by all of us. So it was decided to follow a policy of support and solidarity with the students of our institutions. So her direction was, no student will ever be made to leave our schools on account of non-payment of fees. I was very much appreciative of this, So she says that if the provincial office, you must approach the provincial. If the provincial office cannot pay, approach the general aid, but no student should be sent home for this reason. And let us also treat people who come to our door with greater compassion and sensitivity. God has opened a way for us to feel with the poor. I was very much touched, and because of this, we had the reaching out program to different people. We had, like we said, instead of giving small gifts, we will adopt about 24 families. And I was fortunate that I was able to go there. And as Pope says, he says, to be shepherds with the smell of the sheep. So I was able to go to the houses of the people to see their living conditions. And it was a real blessing, because then we realized how rich we are. Till that time, we don't realize, no, we see their struggles, and then we realize, Lord, how much you have blessed me with, So And when we see these poor people, when we see the struggle of the migrants, we feel so helpless. But then I found that I asked the Lord, what do you want me to do, Lord? I feel so helpless. I have no control over this whole situation. But God says, I am in control. That came very, very strongly to me. Then God says, I am in control. You only just carry out whatever you can do. You do it with the love and with joy. And that is what I have been doing. So I found the gift of prayer. That was a very big blessing to me. So I felt that God is asking me to give myself in prayer, and whoever I come in contact with, to give them that, to share with them that joy and that love what God has put into my heart. So with that, I have been able to carry on day after day and do my
That
work.
is,
And this is what has been my experience during this pandemic. It is a new experience, but I have learned much, much, much from it by interacting with people and coming to know so many, what their suffering is, what their struggles are, and being able to take their concerns to the Lord.
yes, very deeply moving. And, I think this helps us better understand the human nature, and, reflect upon who we are, and, our own, the weaknesses of our own human condition. Hopefully, this will help us launch a new humanity rather than a doomsday. So thank you, sister, and we will talk a little more about diversity and inclusion. With that note, I have to call Yaprak, Dr. Yaprak Ward. She is probably the only educational expert here. I mean, we all are education administrators or work in the higher education sector, but Yaprak is a professor of education. So how do you take this pandemic and the response of higher education system in general? I mean, as a prefacing comment.
Thank you, Babu. Thank you for including me. I'm so honored. It's such a privilege to meet so many people, and I want to thank your university and St. Joseph's College and all the panelists that I'm sharing this webinar with. I want to say hello and good evening from the US, from the Midwest, that is. Well, how do I take it? I think, Babu, as majority of the leaders, whether they're institutional or government, I think we failed big time, spectacularly, because really we did not see this coming, despite the fact that we had previews, a sneak preview of by SARS and MERS. I'm sorry, it's in the middle of the night, so my tongue. We had sneak preview with SARS and MERS years ago, and yet we did not take this into account. We're local. Yeah, we work locally and we act locally. We forget that we're actually globalized, we're internationalized, but we don't take that into account when we're looking into the global affairs. We're interconnected, interdependent, and we just don't take that into account. And so I think we failed big time. Even the World Health Organization, in my view, failed big time when this was actually becoming a pandemic. They did not really recognize it, acknowledge it, and sort of carried on in, like your provost said, in the denial form. Many of the institutions denied it. They just didn't want to care about it. They thought nothing was happening. Italy had shut down, China had shut down, Europe was still thinking of liquids and terrorism, not about the shutdown, the medical factor that was affecting the whole world. So we forget that we're interconnected, interdependent, and interrelated. That's the most important thing, I think, in the midst of this threat. We don't look at factors like political factors, medical factors. These big organizations like the World Bank, United Nations, OECD, they have indexes. They have global health index and global peace index. When we develop marketing plans for partnerships, for internationalization, we take a look at these. However, I think, failed when it comes to applying it to our own selves. But as Fort Hays State University, your former institution, Babu, I think we were fortunate in that our department, Graduate School of College of Education, we were online. We were pioneers in terms of providing courses online asynchronously. That was important. So we were really dancing with technology. We had the infrastructure. We were really good at it. But then I'm thinking of my other colleagues that they were forced to actually adapt themselves to another system. My heart went out to them, and we offered help, thinking however we can help you with, please let us know. And that's what we did, I think, to hold hands. And like the previous speakers also said, this is not a time to compete. This is a time to collaborate. And we need to have a united strategy to work all together, whatever. It's really like in the Jungle Book, I'm talking too much, but in the Jungle Book, when we look at the strength of the pack in the wolf, and then we look at the strength of the wolf in the pack, so we're all working together. It's a community. We're collaborating, cooperating. And I think that's the most important part at this moment, to be thankful and to really collaborate, not only with our communities, but around the world with everybody else, because we're so interconnected.
Yeah, so I think the underlying tone is there is harmony behind all those seeming paradoxes and noisy disorders, and we need to probably actively look for those connecting pieces which unites the humanity rather than I need to get the vaccine, someone who is not as privileged as me should not get it, all those divergent thoughts. Anil, yeah, I needed to, keep you waited, but you get the final go when it comes to the first round of speeches. So what do you think? I mean, you live in Mexico, right?
Actually, I do. However, right now I am in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
But yes, originally I am living in Querétaro. Right now I am visiting family and friends. On the other hand, the outlook of Mexico is a little bit different than, I suppose, what we heard. Whether it is good or bad, of course, is a big question mark, and we can definitely talk about this. But what happened in Mexico, unfortunately, AMLO, the current president, didn't really take so many steps to prevent ongoing COVID-19. For people who do not know who is AMLO, is Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. He is the president of Mexico. And what happened is, unfortunately, COVID-19 spread among us, meaning that our students as well as faculty, one of which was actually I suffered COVID-19 briefly, but it's still a big deal. On the other hand, what we have seen is we were really blindsided as institutions, as people, society, as well as how we approach to it as a health crisis and economic crisis as well.
Yeah, someone posted there that Mexican president just got COVID. So, I mean, it sounds almost like a poetic justice when politicians get COVID before ordinary folks.
I agree, and actually, he is my colleague. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that some of you mentioned is. The difference between the haves and the have-nots. There is clearly a differentiation in terms of who gets affected, worse versus worst. Nobody is probably benefited other than maybe multi-billion corporations. The billionaires are becoming more billionaires, but otherwise everyone is getting affected. It's only a matter of the degree. So talking about education, did you feel digital divide? Did you see that your students, at least some of the students, are to go through digital divide, either in terms of access or the quality of access of educational resources? And if yes, how did you deal with that as educators or as educational administrators or someone who is a stakeholder in the entire game? I mean, anyone could go. Now that we have started with our first round, I'm just opening it for a free-flowing set of ideas. How did you? Yes.
Me to go, Babu. So I've been dealing with digital, and we have a conference coming up.
Yes.
I think digital divide and digital inclusion and digital inequity issues existed before the pandemic. And we had been talking about it, saying, please, please give access to people, please increase the ability of people's digital competencies. We've been begging. Perhaps I'm in education, and because it's grad school, my students are teachers out in the field, they're educators, they're principals, they're superintendents, and I have an assignment on digital inequities, and they would report back and they would tell us that their students would have to go to places like Walmart, et cetera, to get access. This is a no-no. We have so much digital divide, not only access broadband width-wide, but also competencies, abilities. You can have technology, and you can know how to use technology, but if you don't know how to use it to succeed, to do something with it, like achieve methodology, then it's useless. So the first thing is really to have that access to give everybody, like the electrification law we had in the 1930s in the US. You just give it to people. I mean, that's just a given because it's going to get worse. We thought technology would not advance so much. Yes, it did. It advanced so much that we can't keep up with it anymore. And so to the ability, we also not only give them laptops and whatever they need, PCs, but we also have to give that broadband access. We also have to teach them competencies so they can actually use the technology to achieve something. That's my take.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, Prague. I mean, yes, Max?
Yes, it's a very interesting approach. Educations come from the Latin term educere. Educere means feed cattle or emancipation. So what professors say is the same. You have technology, it's a double sword. It's a double sword. On one hand, it can feed cattle, while on another, it can serve as a grounds for emancipation. All depends on the culture, values we may cultivate. So this crisis open the doors to a new cosmology, a new ways to understand things. If we understand that, we will repeat the same errors of the past. I agree with the professor. I agree with the professor completely. But it is in the epistemology, in the etymology of the term. Education comes from a Latin term. It's a Latin term from the Roman Empire. Educere. Educere, educations, come from feeding cattle, or giving to the citizens their emancipations. All depends of people.
Martha?
Yes, going back to your question about the digital divide, at my university, we were blind to that. We were trying not to see that there was this digital divide. This pandemic brought us and opened our eyes. We try to rationalize students are not doing well because of this, because of that, but never accepted that there were those inequities. It was something that was against us. We are USA. We need everybody has equal opportunities and the American dream and everything. This has opened our eyes, and I think that it has change our way of dealing with students. I'm seeing more empathy towards students. I hear professors telling, oh, I have never extended due dates as much as this semester. I never used to do that. I was really strict. And now they are looking at students with other eyes. They are looking at them with as real people with real issues, and they're trying to understand. So I think that even it's not the best the best scenario. This has been a pandemic. Nobody wants a pandemic. Something good has come out of it in terms of our relationship with students and how we try to empathize with them.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, previously we heard about positive psychology. I think there is a silver lining in all these things. I mean, I'm not thinking that we should just not think about the real issues in a critical way, but there is something that we could all learn from this, and we did all learn. I mean, previously these were armchair thinking topics, but right now, we are really working into making our hands and minds dirty with the nature of inequalities and divides. Did anyone else feel technology deficiencies? I mean, not just among students, but also among professors or teachers. We have had several professors that I have come across posting on social media, talking about, their difficulty to use some of these learning management systems. A lot of senior professors, they are very good in their subject matter. They are experts in their disciplines, but they are not so advanced in terms of their ability to use technologies. And that is the pathetic situation, because their wisdom cannot be shared as effectively as it used to be in face-to-face classes. So, I mean, those kinds of issues are not just for the students or not just for the economically disadvantaged sections of the society, but also for people belonging to other groups. Father Eric, do you want to add something about?
Yeah, interestingly, in my school, some of the students, especially those from the IT department, they were able to develop apps to help their fellow students to access the online teachings. And they even also developed an app to help the lecturers, the professors, on how to go about online teaching. And for me, that was really fantastic. Yeah. But of course, like others have said, some of the lecturers have no know-how about technology and how to go about teaching with the new tools. It was a big challenge for them. But with the help of the students and the IT department, they were assisted.
Yes, yeah. And as we observed before, there is an increased need for collaboration rather than protecting your own intellectual or technology resources. And I'm seeing that a lot. Universities and schools that are blessed with more of these resources, they show more and more willingness to share and care. Even MOOCs providers, they have opened up their platforms. Coursera and edX, for example, they have opened up pandemic responses. Coursera for Campus has been benefited by millions of people, and similarly, a lot of edtech companies have come up with helping hand. Open source development in technologies have accelerated during this time, so that is a huge blessing for people living in countries who cannot afford to buy these proprietary technologies. Even commercial developers like Zoom, they have opened up scaled down versions of their product for schools in around the world. So I think everyone understood the need to share and care. So that's a good sign. Nothing related to this panel. I really want the panel to go on because we really should have more time to discuss this, but the previous sessions took more time than we expected. So we need to wind up this. And also I should respect the time zones of some of the participants here. So I have prepared 15 questions, in order to tame the panel, but it doesn't look like I can take any more questions. So let me take the last 5 minutes to ask this panel. Anyone with something that you really feel like you need to share for the benefit of people here? I would assume we have 400 or more people on Zoom alone, and this is being live streamed on YouTube. If any of you really wish to say something, yes, at least a couple of you, please take all of you 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, Babu, I want to share something.
Yes,
I think I really agree with everybody. What we are saying is time to share and it's time to collaborate. But it is important to now with educators to involve people to create more conscience that we have to do something for reach the people to embrace what is happening with this new now. Now, what is happening in the world is we are against with a pandemic, a COVID, and what we do in Bolivia, we create a program with a university called Active Citizen Program. The program is developed to create the conscience to train trainers for create a better societies than the young people create active actions to involve people in the digital, global, and biosafe perspective to create in his own communities the purpose of help other people that have no the resources of something. This program that we developed, it is a program for free, but what we think it is important to create in the youngs and the elders the possibility to share this knowledge, to share the good actions, to involve other people to do this stuff, because we have problems in all the countries. The problem is that some peoples are not take care of everybody and they go and spread the virus, and we can do nothing if we don't involve the youngest, the elders to create the conscience that this virus is against all that. No?
Yes, very insightful perspective. Anil, you wanted to say something. I'm sorry, I did not give you.
Mine is going to be very straightforward, and actually it is not going to be even technical, but I think it is very impactful to say that we are, as students, as instructors, professors, we are in this together, and we understand the impact of COVID-19. For example, when I saw the Times Higher Education survey saying that every one person out of 3 students are suffering from food security, it makes me realize that how severe the problem is. And I always say to my students, and I am pretty sure majority of us do, whenever you need, we are not right now only your professors, but we are your resources for information, help, even psychological support. So don't worry, just reach us. That will be my point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that level of compassion and yes, empathy are very important. Eddie?
Yes, I was amazed by the level of resilience. It's something I came to learn that amidst the diversity, we have the ability to adjust and do the best for the benefit of our fellow humanity. And I appreciate the ability of students, even lecturers, the faculty administrative staff, to switch from the paper to face and going directly into electronic mode It was amazing. But the challenge now that is coming up in my institution is that students are now fatigued by online teaching. They want to have a face-to-face. And we don't know what to do with that because we cannot bring 100% the number of students to the university. And this remains a challenge within the COVID time and post-COVID. And for those students enjoying online, it may be very difficult also to be brought back to campus. So we are in for this. It brings the new opportunities, but the resilience is perfect that I was able to witness.
Very good. Any final? Yes, yeah, Prak?
Babu, I think the word resilience, Eddie, that was very good. And, when I look at students before the pandemic in classrooms, they used to come into classrooms and look into their phones without making contact with other people. And now they're in love with contact. They miss that. So I'm like, okay, now they appreciate that because there's that generation that looks at their phones and does not make any communication with other people. Now they understood, which is a good thing, maybe the positive thing that came out of the pandemic. That's one. Secondly, I think, Babu, you brought up a very important, and Anil, you did too. It's about really cooperation and collaboration. I think we have to put our self-interests apart. And, people have two factors in them. They either compete or they cooperate. And I think this is the time to cooperate with each other, to help the ones that are weaker in technology or whatever the case is, and just get together. And, I love Gary Klein's pre-mortem or hypothetical post-mortem project. So what you do is we can all, as universities, look at ourselves and do a hypothetical post-mortem, meaning, we usually say after the pandemic or during the pandemic, if we fail, and many universities are struggling, we have a huge pain going on. So if we do a postmortem and say, instead of saying coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe we can do a postmortem, look at the end and say, we failed spectacularly, so what should we do? So look at the final and go back and then now work on that. So really, if we do that, we may be able to stop that pain that's going to hit us, maybe more, certain universities more, as a state university or private university, global university, whatever it is. And I think the other thing is we should prepare a database with all our faculty, staff, student capabilities and competencies. There's so much expertise on campus, but we don't want to deal with that. Now we have pandemic teams and we deal with pandemic, we forget what's happening. There are other things that are happening as well. And so with that database, if we bring out all of the competencies, we can all pitch in. We can all say, we're all in this together. It's like the wolf in the pack. And we're going to go through this together. So we're going to set aside our differences, and then we're going to get a unified strategy and work together. And I think this is the time to do that. And that's what the pandemic showed us, collaboration and not competition, not self-interest. So this is the time.
Yeah, that is a very positive note. I mean, this is very refreshing, even though it is a very odd time for some of us, because I attended several events like this. The tone of the discussion has mostly always been negative, but I am happy to see that the panelists here are, looking at the positive side of things, in general, and that's very refreshing. Hopefully, we are past the peak of the pandemic, and I really do not wish us to conclude this session because this is such a good panel of experts with a lot of very unique insights. But unfortunately, due to the way we started late, and now there are a lot of paper presentations yet to come as part of this conference. So I am compelled to wind up. Let me appreciate your time. Let me deeply appreciate that you spent your valuable nights. You could sleep comfortably, and it's very global. And a couple of the panelists could not come because of the time differences. They had other assignments. We had people from representing other continents and other parts of the world. Maybe they will come in the next two panels. I really appreciate once again your time. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, or twilight zones, anywhere you are.
Too late, Makis. Yes. Well, it's a pleasure to be. It's a pleasure to join your meeting, Babu. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a night.
Thank you, Babu.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Babu. Thank you. It has been joy to be with all of you.
Bye. Invitation. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Take
Over
care.
to Karishma. Yeah, Daniel.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, sir. Now it is the golden opportunity for the participants to ask their questions. If you have any queries, please be free to leave them in the chat box of the Zoom. And to those YouTube participants, be free to leave them in the comment section. So we have a question now. How has trust issues been solved during this pandemic?
Anyone from the panel? I would not wish to answer it. Since I'm moderating, I would like to have perspectives from anyone else who is still here. Some of the panelists may have logged off, but how do you deal with trust issues during this pandemic? Any panelists? I think almost everyone logged out. Okay, so let me quickly answer that question. One thing, I mean, it's very hard to answer that question in a very black and white way. Something that I have been observing is there is a resurgence on technologies that do not base trust on individuals or institutions, but on digital technologies like blockchain, for example. There has been a lot of scams and scandals going on around the world. And since everything has moved online, trusting individuals and traditional institutions have become even more problematic. So, even in education, we are seeing diplomas being, issued on blockchains and authentication of certificates being done. Using those technologies. So I think that is one way. The other way is, as one of the panelists, Yaprak, said, there is an increased attention to personal connections in the neighborhood. Before the pandemic, we did not know the person living next door. We had friends from other countries and continents on Facebook. But right now, that has changed, and we have started appreciating people and institutions that are near to us in physical proximity. So I think that is another way by which we deal with, and when it's kind of a reinvention of the golden times of the past. Thank you.
I guess Professor Lena would like to answer this question.
Yes.
Yes, I know we are aware of the time and so on, but I thought it's an interesting question from the audience. And I wanted to say how in my company, trust issues were solved. At the very beginning in early February, there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of things were being done that didn't look very well prepared. For example, we received an email that after 3 days, we're going to have a workshop about how to teach online. But all of us thought, oh, it's okay. They're just teaching us how to do it. We're not actually going to have to teach online, right? So we were definitely wrong about that. So at the beginning, we were a bit uncertain. We're worried that some people will be fired, that we'll lose our jobs, that our students will not come back to class and so on. But about 10 days into the actual pandemic, the epidemic that was growing, one thing that happened in my company is my school leadership made an issues and crisis team that was in charge of dealing with anything COVID related. So there were some of our top leaders, school president and so on, and they had the job to talk to the government, to receive instructions, to email all of us, to email us specifically if we needed to go into quarantine, to ask us specifically not to travel. So we received, for a few weeks, we received at least 2 or 3 times a week emails to all of the employees and all of the students with instructions of what to do, when to come to class, when not to come to school. Then we're told that the campus will be closing, and we had deadlines for things that we needed to do before getting offline, before getting out of campus and so on. So I think after those emails started coming and they were very clear, and they always, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because it was a very difficult time. The emails were very clear and they said, we have to do this, we have to do this. And then at the end of the email, our president always said, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And for me, that was something that really sorted all of the trust issues that I had. I felt I'm being taken care of, someone cares about me, my school cares about me, I'm not gonna get fired, there will still be the world after COVID and so on. So that's from my perspective as an employee. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I guess that's all with the queries we have. Thank you, sir, for this panel discussion. I thank each and everyone who took part in the panel discussion from the bottom of my heart. Next, for the attention of all the participants, the feedback form is pinned in the chat box right now. Please do fill the form in order to issue the certificates for you guys. So moving on. Now, let me invite Mirin Mary for vote of thanks. Over to you, Mirin.
A warm morning to one and all. Respected dignitaries, faculty members, management, and friends. It's a matter of proud privilege for me to express my sincere gratitude to all who have contributed to the success of this event. Dr. Bivali B. Vitali, Professor and Director, Institute for Leadership Development, Christian Brothers University, USA, has joined this conference without any hesitation from our humble request. I take this opportunity to thank wholeheartedly on behalf of Department of Commerce and Management Studies and all present here for sparing your precious time to share your valuable knowledge with us. Thank you, ma'am. I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Babu George, Professor and Associate Dean, Graduate Business, Christian Brothers University, USA, the co-coordinator, for his enormous support and guidance. I also take this opportunity to thank our panel members for enlightening us with their knowledge. I also thank all other eminent personalities, faculty members, and each and everyone who had lent their valuable time and effort in contributing to the success of this virtual meet. Once again, thanking everyone present here, I conclude, thank you.
Thank you, Mirin. Work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in 80 to 100 hours every week. This improves the odds of success. If other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. With these words of Elon Musk, let us wind up day one of the international seminar. Once again, we thank each and everyone who took time out of their day to spend with us. Until tomorrow, thank you and have a beautiful day ahead.